Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot. Oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girls. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only Supernatural Girls.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girls. I'm your host, Patricia Baker, and I am here without PK this evening. Miss PK has a doctor's appointment, which unfortunately is at the same time as the show. As many of you know, PK has had terrible back issues and lots of pain that goes with that. So she is trying to get all of that rectified. And I know we all hope that she is feeling better after her doctor's appointment today. So we miss you, PK, and we hope you're having some success with your new doctor. And tonight, everybody, we have a tremendous guest. Kathleen Marden is with us, and we're going to jump right into it. I'm going to tell you a little bit about our dear Kathleen. Her insatiable interest in UFOs and ET contact began in 1961 when her aunt and uncle, Betty and Barney Hill, had a close encounter and UFO abduction in New Hampshire's White Mountains. As a family member, Kathleen gained firsthand knowledge of Betty's and Barney's UFO encounter on the day they arrived home. And 2 days later, she, her parents, and siblings visited the Hills' home. She has devoted years to painstaking investigation of the Hills' anomalous events and archival research on their UFO abduction case. As the trustee of Betty's estate, she selected files from Betty's personal archival collection for a permanent collection at the Milne Special Collections Library. That's at University of New Hampshire. So anyways, you will find her case study of the evidence in her book with Stanton Friedman, Captured, the Betty and Barney Hill UFO Experience, which was updated in 2021. Now, it's also very important to know, since 1991, she has volunteered for the Mutual UFO Network in various positions, such as Director of Field Investigator Training and Founder-Director of MUFON's Experiencer Resource Team. Over a 10-year period, Kathleen expanded her team from 3 members to 45 trained, seasoned specialists and attracted PhD and MD psychological and research consultants. Additionally, she sat on the Edgar Mitchell Free Advisory Board. In this period, she worked on 3 studies on nearly 5,000 experiencers. So, my God, I could just keep reading here. This goes on and on. However, I think I'd rather talk to Kathleen directly, and I know you really want to hear from her because we're going to be talking tonight about how abduction experiences have changed through the years. So, Kathleen, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
It's so great
to be with you.
Yeah, great to have you here. I know PK is going to be so sad she missed you. But anyways, you know, there's this subject has just exploded, as you well know.
Yes, absolutely.
So not getting a lot of answers, nor do we expect any from the government, but you have such a wealth of information about all of this. And by the way, I wanted to say I thought you did a great job of taking Stephen Greer to task for his statement about Betty and Barney Hill's abduction not being a true ET abduction. I thought that was a very strange statement for him to make. And I'm really glad that you put it out there to correct it.
Well, I thought that it was extraordinarily important. He was apparently given this information by a whistleblower, and not all whistleblowers are honest. Right. And, you know, Betty and Barney had a tremendous amount of evidence, and my new book has even more scientific evaluation of the evidence with some really exciting findings. So there's no doubt, I don't know how there can be any doubt in anyone's mind that this was a military abduction or a staged abduction by some black ops program.
Exactly. Well, I'm so glad that you made it public in the way you corrected it, and I was impressed with your response. I never doubted for a second that Betty and Barney had the experience that they did. So good for you.
Thank you.
Straighten those people right out. They need straightening out sometimes, don't they?
Yes, I do it respectfully, and I do it with colleagues. There are some people that I don't even respond to because they're a group of jackals who are ready to jump in for an attack, and I know who they are, so it's completely useless to respond to anyone like that. But if it's a respected colleague, then I certainly will respond with the facts.
Yes, well, good for you. Good for you. So there's been many years of these experiencers reporting on their contacts and their abductions, and things have changed. I mean, that's, I think, going to be a very interesting topic tonight, because wherever these reports started coming in and where we are today, things are different. So what would you say about that?
Well, they absolutely are, because, in the beginning, as the early investigators, researchers started to look at all of this, the military jumped in, and all you heard about was the Space Brothers and Space Sisters, as they were called. They were kind, benevolent, and wanted to assist humanity in advancing our civilization. And the government saw that as a threat. It was during our Cold War with Russia. It was all anti-communist. They were viewing this kind of philosophy as communistic. And so therefore, they just jumped in, and they ruined the credibility of anyone who claimed to have contact with these types of human-like or Nordic-type entities.
Do you have some specific examples about how they did that? Because from what I heard, some of these stories, and I believe them, they were pretty nasty about the way they went after these people's character.
Oh, yes, absolutely. With George Adamski, for example, Donald Menzel, Dr. Donald Menzel, who is reputed to have been on MJ-12 and who was a debunker. He had close ties to the CIA and the NSA. It was naval intelligence prior to that. And very long history with this, but he was always involved in this, working very closely with the government, as he was an astrophysicist at Harvard, head of the observatory, and had used government funding to set up observatories in California and New Mexico as well. So he was pretty tight and working with the Pentagon.
Mm-hmm.
And doing their bidding. And so he would go in with these individuals and destroy their credibility by explaining it away, either as this person, first of all, did not grow up in the United States, came from another country. We know that he was a hoaxer there, or he was a fraud. And George Adamski was a meditator. That's true. He was a spiritual individual. and they, he ran like a hot dog stand at the bottom of Mount Palomar, and he had a group of individuals who really adored him, and they were all together sort of as a group. And Adamski took photographs, and those were debunked as being fakes. Then we go on to one of the early people who was, I believe he's still alive, over in Europe, who was called a cult leader. And as I looked into his background, there were records that were presented stating that he had left his country. He had gone, I think it was to Italy, and committed crimes, and he was spent most of his life in prison. And then when he came out of prison, he started saying that he was seeing UFOs and taking photographs of them. And people who have been around him that I know, who have met him, who are highly credible individuals, say he is 100% real. Now, his ex-wife said that his photograph was hoax. But, so you have this, you have these, always have a history of these two sides who are going loggerheads with one another. One side would be UFO investigators. The other side would be disinformants.
Right.
And the disinformants demanded equal time. The disinformants often were touted as, and sometimes they were, highly educated and connected with the government, highly respected individuals, whereas the ufologists, regardless of how well educated they were, such as Stanton Friedman, who had a master's degree in nuclear physics, who worked in private industry for 14 years as a physicist, who advanced in his career and became a senior physicist, ended up, being called names by Donald Menzel. He said, "You can't be a scientist. No scientist would believe that this was real." By Philip Klass, who was the number one anti-UFO propagandist of the 20th century, who wrote to the Canadian government and told the Canadian government that Stanton was a fraud. They compared him to a snake oil salesman, that sort of thing.
This is terrible.
Philip Klass, yes, it is terrible.
Philip is one of the worst, or in the government's eyes, one of the best in terms of how he would go after people. But it's heartbreaking, because here are people trying to share a personal story that has no other reference points, and they want to have help in making sense out of it. And all they're finding is finger pointing accusations and these disinformants and government agents trying to destroy their reputation in front of their own community, in front of their own families. It's really horrible.
And they were highly successful with people who did not know them. I thought they were frauds for years, until I talked to highly credible people who said, no, that was all false propaganda. So, it sort of changed my mind and made me realize that disinformation was coming from the military before I realized that it was.
What do you think it was back then, that so many years ago, that scared them so much that they had to spend all of our tax dollars in this way to hurt private citizens?
Well, when UFOs hovered over Washington, D.C., were chased by two fighter jets, seen by many, many people. That was 1952. And that was the point at which the government really stepped in. The CIA stepped in. They formed the Robertson panel that met in January of 1953. They had a few Air Force cases. The Air Force officers who were in charge stated that they didn't realize the magnitude of what this study was, or they would have taken the time to look through more cases to present the best cases that they had. But they presented cases. This was a small committee of government scientists, of CIA agents, and representatives from Project Blue Book, such as Alan Hynek was there, and Edward Ruppelt, who was the head of Project Blue Book at the time, he was there. Some government, it was Pentagon officials. And the decision ended up being made that none of the evidence was good enough for the scientists, and that they had a mission, and that mission was to give disinformation to the public. What they wanted to do is to have scientists write newspaper articles or make public statements or write books saying that there is a conventional explanation for all of this, that it's misperception, it's temperature inversions, it's mass hysteria.
Swamp gas.
Swamp gas, yes, there's another one. So it was a federal program, and that program has never ended as far as I'm aware. And so even though we're now having a congressional investigation for the first time in years, and Congress is very interested, they're kind of doubling down on this, whereas the Pentagon has given them nothing but pushback, and even when people spoke up, they were criticized. When people gave sworn testimony, they ended up being criticized. So, it's really unfortunate that this has happened.
It's always like, abductees, experiencers are always trying to climb out of a hole. And,
yes.
and that's a very, very difficult position to be in. Also, trying to integrate something that's very difficult to integrate, which is, who did I meet with? What were these things? Were they ETs? Were they interdimensionals? What did they want with me? Memory wipes where they can't remember everything that happened. So it's a very challenging thing. And a lot of these experiencers have had to be really strong.
They have, absolutely.
Yeah.
And when David Grush went before Congress and gave his testimony, two people that he had formerly worked with from the Pentagon gave medical information about him that to try to destroy his credibility. He'd been over in the war in the Middle East, and he, like everybody else, had PTSD. If you didn't come home with traumatic stress, there was something wrong with you, in my opinion. And so, the military would discourage people from seeking treatment for that kind of thing. But he did seek treatment. And as a result of that, there were terrible stories put out about him to make him look like he was unstable and unreliable, because he gave more information than anyone else. He talked about bodies. He talked about crashed UFOs, non-human DNA, that sort of thing. And the Pentagon just kind of went nuts over it, I guess, and tried to destroy him.
It is such a a war over who's going to control this.
Yes.
And certainly our government and military has tried to control it, and they've done it pretty successfully for a long period of time. However, in the last 10 years or so, when people have seen what's really going on with the government and how they've been basically trying to pull the blinds over all of our eyes on so many things. I think that this whole UFO field is a perfect example that now people see this whole process has radiated out through just about every department, where we have to question who's telling us the truth. Is anybody telling us the truth? And it certainly does force us back on our own experiences. And like you said, when you talk to credible people, you realize that these people that you were told to think of as fakes were not.
Right. And, when military whistleblowers testify under oath before Congress, I believe them, because they will say, I can't tell you this because it's still classified. We would have to have a private meeting to discuss classified information. So they will say that. I mean, you look at Lou Elizondo, for example. I believe him. And he always says, I can't give you the answer to that. It's classified, or I just don't know the answer. And, there are some people who I believe are very trustworthy and I admire, who have worked in high-level positions for the government.
Right. Well, that's good. And unfortunately, most people don't have access to them. You do, which thank goodness you do. So you can set us straight about some of these things and give us the right information. But as time went on, so they started out with this character assassination. But I've also heard that even before the characters, they would actually assassinate people that they felt were about to tell some information they did not want told. So are you aware of that also?
Well, David Grush testified that people had been assassinated over this topic.
Which is also very frightening. Yes.
It is.
Now, so as time went on, so we have the assassinations, then we have the character assassinations that, again, I want to stress, took place in front of people's family, friends, and community. So they didn't just stop at your little network. They went out into the community to try to destroy people's reputations there. But then what happened? What shifted? What changed? Because you don't see that as much anymore.
Well, I think that the internet intervened and people became more aware of the truth. Ancient Aliens is on television now, and there are other credible shows where they will tell the truth about this. They're pretty cautious, though. They're not showing pictures of non-humans or anything like that, which they, I have some in my possession. I'm sure others do as well from my own personal cases. So, but they do not like it if I show something like that. I've been threatened over it. And
give us an example of how they would have communicated that threat to you?
Face to face.
Wow. So they would just come right up to you, and what would they say?
You're done. If you say anything more about this, we will harm you and we'll harm your family. That's basically that kind of line. I don't even know who's doing it, but I've been threatened a few times over the years, but I am going to continue. And my attitude is that if they want to kill me, kill me. Murder me. So if I die, it's not suicide.
That's right.
Want everyone to know that.
You just said that. And I'm sure it's not the first time you've had to say that, so people understand. Yes, and God, you better stay away from Kathleen, everybody. She's got friends on all sides here.
I do. I have friends who have been high-ranking officers in the military.
Right. Yes.
I have a lot of different friends who kind of watch my back for me as well. And I have a very good security system, and I'm very quiet about anyone except for myself or deceased family members. And so that's the way I operate. But it's extraordinarily important to me to disseminate the truth and the evidence to those individuals who want that, who are interested, who are willing to accept that level of information. I'm not trying to convince the John Q. public about this. I think the general public can believe whatever they want. And there are those who believe that they're all demons, to those who don't believe they exist, to those who are beginning to believe that they exist, but have very little knowledge about it. So you have all levels of education and knowledge in the general population. Those are not the people who are listening to me.
Right.
It's people who have an interest in learning.
Yes. And understanding who we are.
Yes.
Because that's a big part of this, is understanding where we came from, who we are, who our relationship is quite intimate with at least some of the ETs, maybe more than we even know. But yeah, I mean, I've mentioned this before, but Bigelow's group has been doing they did a whole big life after death challenge, and now they're doing another kind of challenge. And one of the questions they were asking in their new challenge is, what would it take for people to choose spirituality over technology? And my answer is quite simple. First of all, you got to tell the truth and stop hiding it. So the truth is, who are we really? And as soon as we know the answer to who are we really, we know what our choice is going to be. But keeping that information from us leads us to make poor choices because we're working on lies. We're not working on the truth. And if you want people to choose spirit, the value of their own soul, then they have to understand that value.
Yes.
And all of that history, a lot of it has been hidden, and Ancient Aliens is one of the shows that has worked to change that.
Yes. And I believe that you have to choose love rather than hatred, warfare, all of that. And we're in a very difficult situation over that. So it's not just choosing spirituality or technology. You can use technology for many positive things, not just to destroy.
Right.
And I don't know what it's going to take. I know that many people around the world are awakening and becoming more spiritual. And in the 3 studies that I've worked on, we've discovered that one of the changes that experiencers undergo, nearly everyone, is an increase in their level of spirituality. They become more psychic. They become empathic. So, it's a lot of positive traits. You become ill too, but you can be healed at a fairly significant rate. Yes.
That's
yes.
wonderful. Right. So things, as you mentioned, have changed because of the internet, which is good. And also cell phones with cameras have changed a lot because from what I heard from one ex-FBI agent is that they finally gave up trying to suppress a lot of these things because in the blink of an eye, that photograph has gone around the world or that video or whatever that shows these crafts and has a detailed explanation from the experiencer. That's out and they can't stop it. So I think they've kind of given up on that aspect of it, right?
Yeah, they used to take people's video and photographs and they'd never be returned.
Right.
But, so that is a significant difference. But I think also we have a network of experiencers now. John Mack worked on that. After he passed away, there was kind of a lag for a while. Barbara Lamb was working on it. And then I thought when I initiated the experiencer research team for MUFON. And over the 10 years when I was doing that, we did an excellent job, I think, of finding credible support groups where people, even online, can join together, can interact with one another. If you have a person that you trust, they might live across the United States from you, but still, when you have an experience, you can call that person and they can call you, and you can share that bond together, give each other that support. Or you can do that in a online support group. Some of them meet face to face too, but the online groups are wonderful because you don't have to travel. You can be there on Zoom. We compiled a list of licensed psychotherapists who use hypnosis, who work with experiencers who are suffering from trauma, also with certified hypnotherapists who are very well trained in working with experiencers, and also quantum healing hypnosis practitioners as well. And so, and Opus has that list as well. Lester Velez is the head of OPUS, Opus. Many of the people who used to work on my team are now volunteers for Opus, and you can go there with complete confidentiality. Your report is never going to be posted anywhere, and you can receive referrals. You'll talk one-on-one with a very helpful, caring individual. So
that's so important. Yeah.
It is extraordinarily important.
It's so one of the biggest problems with the old time experiences is that it also threw people into intense isolation where they didn't know who they could talk to. And certainly even their own families, they didn't feel they could tell sometimes. So yeah, it's what you guys also have worked to create, has been so helpful, and it's kind of softened this whole experience for people so they can work with it.
Yes.
And they can deal with it in a very positive type of way. So what are you seeing now with people who have experiences and are talking about them? They're getting more support, which is good, so they're more likely to talk about it. But what about the experiences themselves? Because in the past, there was a lot of harvesting of eggs and sperm and this and that, and testing the third eye for how much light it was producing and other things. How have these experiences changed since then?
Well, I think that we know more about this, and people are more willing to share their information confidentially. Mm-hmm. It's not defending themselves because they're being investigated. Well, MUFON has changed its rules, so now you have to be investigated before you can get the help at MUFON. Mm-hmm. That's why I recommend Opus. But today, people have a higher level of knowledge. People are older. I mean, we've been taken over a lifetime. We know that about 75% of experiencers were less than 20 years old when they were taken for the first time, according to our MUFON study on that of 516 experiencers. And over a lifetime, you develop a relationship. And as you grow, you learn, you become more knowledgeable. You can establish a more positive relationship. You begin to view yourself differently. You're no longer a lab rat on a table who's being exploited, but you're an individual who might have volunteered to do this before you even came into this lifetime. And you are being given information from these non-humans, especially from your escort, the one that you see over and over again, who's also an educator, who is giving you information about why they're here. And, for the most part, for years they've been showing images of nuclear destruction on Earth, of environmental collapse, that sort of thing. But they give messages such as your level of spiritual growth is out of sync with your technological development. And
Right.
when we see this occurring, it could lead to the annihilation of life on the planet. And we don't want to see that. They've told us that they work quietly because they fear that they know that they would be perceived as an invader or as an enemy to the nations around the world, to the military forces who
Right.
don't want them here, who don't want to cooperate with them. Way back in 1954, they had a military contact where they offered to give assistance to us, to teach us. And that was completely rejected by the government. The information went to Dwight Eisenhower, and it was looked into. And the CIA was even shown craft, but they did not trust this non-human alien groups.
Yes.
I say groups, more than one group.
And from what I understood with Eisenhower, he was of the mindset that people would just not be able to handle this if they knew the truth. And I know that's a big bunch of nonsense that's been propagated for years. And I've always disagreed with it. I think, well, it would have been a bit of a shock for people back in the 40s and 50s, but certainly not today. I mean, I think, yes, religion would have some explaining to do and things like that. But overall, if you look at the media, and all these movies and television shows, and I mean, they've made it much more comfortable and interesting to us on the planet to welcome visitors. So, and they're probably much more than visitors, but
yes, I don't think that they hop back and forth from this planet to their planet. They're around to stay.
They're around, yeah.
Yes.
And so I don't think it would be any, War of the Worlds or any of what some people have predicted. Some have said they've run all the algorithms on it, and if people knew, it would be terrible. I don't get that. I don't see that. I don't agree with that position. Because how can we mature? How can we grow up unless, again, we are on a solid foundation of truth?
And I think that most young people realize that we are being visited. They grow up with that kind of knowledge.
Right.
But, it's just people who belong to very conservative religious groups who believe all of this is demonic. And unfortunately, there are members of fundamentalist religious organizations at the Pentagon who believe it's all demonic and want to cast it that way. Based upon religious belief. What happened to the division between church and state? When you have the church running the program at the Pentagon. So, I mean, that has to be dealt with. We have to stop the military from being so fearful, from taking such a negative view, believing that we are going to be invaded and used for whatever purpose. These entities have been around for a long, long time. And if they wanted to do that, they would have done it already.
Exactly. I don't think we have to worry about them turning us into slaves. We're already there. And it's not the aliens that did it. So, yeah, we need to open our eyes and know what's going on. Because when way back when I first got involved with this, I mean, talking 40 years ago, to me, it looked like this was the only place where everything was being hidden from us, where the truth wasn't coming out. But of course, as I grew up and got older, I saw that it's in every single department of the government. There is so much manipulation. There is so much sleight of hand. There is so much greed talking about even Congress wanting to get into the whole UFO thing. One of the thoughts that crossed my mind was, oh, okay, it's because they're not making money from this. They want in on it because they know there's money to be made. And if you look at warmongering, why? Because there's money to be made. And now I'm looking at the people in Congress and who they are and what they've been doing. And I'm thinking, why would they care about UFOs unless they thought they were missing out on something with money to be made? It's just, I don't see anybody on that level that is working for us, like it's supposed to be.
Yes.
I don't see it anymore. It's disappeared. And that one little pocket that I thought was just true of the UFO field is true in my view of the world of everything to do with governments. It's a sad place to be.
I know there's a lot of nasty business going on, but I'm not as cynical as you.
Well, thank goodness.
I know that the Pentagon has covered all of this up for private industry to back engineer UFO technology from crashed saucers, that sort of thing. In terms of Congress, I don't know, maybe I just am too accepting, but I just loved watching David Fravor and David Grush and the other people who testified before Congress, and Adam Schiff's new statements. I think that they really want to know what is occurring. They're trying to get a grasp on that. Maybe they're also thinking about how they want to get a grasp into the stock market. For this. Yes, maybe. I don't know. But yes, so.
Well, I love that you're not as cynical as I am, and I'm relieved. But I also see this as it's wonderful that you, again, have been foremost in the world and creating these groups for people who are having these experiences, and they can now settle with them. They can be at peace with them. They can learn from them. They can grow, because isn't that what this is all about? Is we are supposed to grow and mature as souls and spiritual beings, and to really acknowledge where we come from.
Absolutely. And, the whole power structure has changed. What we used to have would be the experiencer and the investigator on one side, and then you would have the blue ribbon panel where skeptical ufologists and disinformants would form this blue ribbon panel, and they would examine the evidence and determine whether or not this person really had the experience. And that was complete baloney, because it was so dismissive of individuals and who deserves to be judged. Most people don't want to go public with this.
Right.
There's nothing to be gained. There's a lot to be lost. Yes. As a result of going public with this. Most people are just looking for some support, some comfort, someone they can trust to share their experience. And oftentimes they're fearful of even making a report with a UFO organization because of the possibility that their information might be revealed through a violation of confidentiality, as it was with my aunt and uncle, Betty and Barney Hill, and so many others.
Yes. That wasn't good.
No.
Yeah. So, I mean, thank goodness again for you and what your work has brought to us. But now it does seem like there's more opportunities for people to learn from their own experiences. But how are you also seeing the amount of people, the numbers? Are they going down? Are they staying the same? Or are they going up for experiencers? And I'm talking about, I'll call it the abduction experience where they're taken. Do you see that has increased or decreased or stayed the same?
Well, it's really hard for me to calculate that, because when I was director of the ERT, we would have up to 100 people per month who would contact us for confidential conversation, sometimes up to 150 a month. And so, that was quite a number of people coming in per month over a 10-year period.
Right.
But many of them were individuals who had been holding this inside for years. Sorry, there's a mosquito in front of me.
Uh-oh, get rid of that thing.
Right, for years, and hadn't trusted anyone, hadn't been able to process what they had been through. And so now this opportunity was available, and they trusted me as the head of this group, knowing my background, my family background. I think it just flew into my mouth.
Oh, God. Oh, no.
Oh, what a thing to happen on camera. Oh, well. So anyway, everything has changed.
Well, I'm glad it's changed somewhat for the better then. And let me ask you this, and I don't mean to put you on the spot at all, but is there anything you can share with us that surprised you from some of the people that you trust?
In terms of people I've helped or who worked on my team, or
anything to do with an enlightening experience, finding out new information, whether it be from an experiencer or from a whistleblower or somebody else you could trust, like a David Grush type of person. I mean, anything that they told you that was like, wow, that's a surprise.
Well, there were a couple of cases that I worked on where one of the people actually was able to take video of an orb that he had been requesting. He'd been requesting healing. This beautiful light blue orb with an ecru center flew down his wall like a butterfly across his room, hovered a moment over his body, put down this iridescent tendrils, dove into his body and cured his cancer with the medical records to go along with it.
That's perfect. Yeah.
That was wonderful. Also, two researchers who were meeting with a confirmed experiencer who was able to call in Kraft. Kraft came in, and they thought that they would be able to collect EVPs. They had a Bell and Howell camera set up in one part of the yard. They were holding a 35 millimeter camera. A Kraft did start to come in, and it was coming in closer and closer. And all of a sudden, they were no longer holding this equipment in their hands. They were nauseated, swaying back and forth. They picked up the equipment, picked up the Bell and Howell camera, went into the experiencer's home, and his wife said, "Where have you been?" They said, "Just outside." And she said, "No, you weren't. I was looking for you. You weren't there." And she said, "Do you know what time it is?" It was 1 o'clock. They were missing 2 hours time, probably maybe a little bit less than 2 hours time. And there was EVP evidence. There was also evidence for a few seconds on the Bell and Howell video camera of non-human entities coming in. There were two beams of indigo colored light that shot across the screen. You could see entities that were not fully materialized dropping off these beams and then materializing. There was one who was sitting on the ground, had some kind of technological equipment on his back attached to his feet and wearing something on his head. He was enveloped in blue light and then lifted into the air. And he had a blue light in one hand, and he just crossed in front of that screen, moving back and forth, looking both ways. And I'm not even sure if he was an avian or if he was a mantis type, but he had that snout. He was golden colored, the large dark eyes, just really amazing evidence that I've been able to collect from just a handful of people out of probably a few thousand that I've spoken with. But when somebody is very interested in collecting evidence and they have a compelling experience, I train them and I stay with them while they collect this. And then I have people analyze it. It's not just me. And I've written in my book, Extraterrestrial Contact, What to Do When You've Been Abducted, all about that, how to do it. It's written specifically for experiencers to learn how to process, to learn different qualities that experiencers develop over time as experiencers that are not common in the general population, the paranormal overlay, the intelligent orbs in your environment, the sensation that something unseen is walking on your bed.
Well, that's a very helpful book. This is one of many that you've written. So for people who are looking for Kathleen's books, they're all available on Amazon.com. But certainly what to do if you have this experience is very important. Hey, the police just got a new handbook about UFOs and how to sign and send in a report and all kinds of things. Now, that's a first that I've heard.
Yes.
But it's important for people because I hope that more and more ETs and interdimensionals will reach out to people like us rather than going to the government.
And people around the world are meeting together in CE5 groups. Craft sometimes does come in. Sometimes the individuals see the non-humans on the craft. In some gatherings, there have been non-humans who have come in and communicated telepathically with people in the group. And the ETs say that it is not the governments who are going to reveal their presence, that
Right.
when more than 50% of the people on this planet have reached the tipping point where they know that this is real, then there will be more disclosure.
So it's going to force their hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense because they're certainly not committed to telling us anything. And this is not about them wanting to help us or inform us in any way. So we all need to just come to terms with that. That's for sure. But thank you, Kathleen. This has been delightful and it's gone in the blink of an eye. I feel you just got here and sat down. So, so wonderful to talk to you. And I'm glad
And
things.
you too.
Thank you. Thank you so much. But will you please come back and please stay healthy and please come back so we can talk more about all of this. Because I know I'm going to get a lot of questions once people see the show when it's convenient for them to watch it. Because I know this has been during their dinner hour. But anyways, this has been absolutely great. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
You're one of the best in this field. And it's an honor for me to have you here tonight.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. And next week, we'll be back next week with another great show. James Gilliland is going to be joining us, telling us about the adventures on his ranch out in California. It's wild, it's crazy, it's great. You're going to love it. So we'll see you next week. Until then, see you on the Blue Highway. Good night, everyone.